Genesis chapter 12, the call of Abram or Abraham in chapter 12 of Genesis. If you'll turn, first book in the Bible, chapter 12. Now, you know, when Sophia cries, I'm paying her to do that because some people have gone to sleep or their minds are elsewhere, and I want her to cry so we'll wake up. She and I have that going. Okay. Now, Genesis chapter 12. The Lord said to Abram, here's what he said, remember? Chapter 12, beginning at verse 1. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. Verse 2. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Verse 4. Genesis chapter 12, verse 4. So Abram left as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Now Abram was 75 years old, mind you. He wasn't a spring chicken, was he? He didn't just arrive on the scene. He wasn't wet behind the ears yet, was he? He was 75. Okay, good. But he obeyed God, and he set out from Haran, and he took his wife Sarah and his nephew by the name of Lot, and all the possessions they had accumulated, the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Isn't it wonderful that Abram obeyed God? When we obey God, good things happen. We're in the center of His will, right? Sure. Now, bad things may occur, but we're where we ought to be. Now, watch out. There's a tendency to turn back. Is the area down here in the church building, now do you call it in the Korean culture, do you call this area the altar? Is it called the altar? Okay, good. Okay, to me it is. Okay, the area, maybe all the way from that corner around here, it stretches way around, and it's called the altar. Somebody said, watch out, because what you put on the altar, sometimes we take off the altar. Look out, watch out, because they say that's not too comfortable sometimes, and we take it off the altar. Well, when we think about it, don't take your life off of God's altar. Don't take it off. Now there's an old song. Now I should have looked in our hymn book. Okay, this was from my home church in Paris, Illinois, this hymn book, Church Service Hymns. I can remember singing this hymn not many times, but it asks the question, is your all on the altar? Does God really have all of you? In other words, God doesn't want to come into our houses or our homes and all the rooms are His except this room here, or if we have upstairs, we go upstairs. This room's not, no, we don't want God to see in that room. See? Or maybe we don't want Him to see in the family room if we have a family room. Because maybe the magazines and the books aren't too nice, or the videos aren't too good, and we don't want God to see. And we take it off the altar. We should give Him everything. See? So, is your all on the altar? It says, you have longed for sweet peace, for faith to increase. But put your all on the altar. And it sings about that through the hymn. Now, Luke chapter 9, verse 62. This is a beautiful verse for us. It's not only beautiful, it's very, very challenging. Luke chapter 9. Now, we're in Luke 5, verses 1 through 11. But you go to the last verse in Luke chapter 9, verse number 62. Here's how it goes. Jesus replied. In other words, pay attention. Jesus is speaking. And here's what he says. No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. We look forward, don't we? Forward, forward. Now I think Jane is teaching the children this morning. They talked about it on the way over here. She and Kay and Leo did. And they said, she said, we're teaching about the Christian soldier. You know, they have on the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, the Bible, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, and so forth. But there's no back piece, is there? We don't retreat. For God, we go forward. No one who puts his hand to the plow. If you're plowing a field, you don't look back while you're plowing. Plow will go like this, won't it? Rows like this. Straight on. Okay, now, that's the third question. Does God really have all of you? Number 4 question there in the bulletin. Can you admit failure? F-A-I-L-U-R-E. F-A-I-L-U-R-E. Can you admit failure? Well, what Dr. Young Ben Kim and the congregation you were reading today from Luke 5, in verse 5, it goes like this. Simon answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and we haven't caught anything. Have you ever been fishing and you didn't catch a thing? About 2 hours for me on fishing and I'm through. I guess I get disinterested now. If I caught about 15 fish in 2 hours, I'd want to stay. But I haven't caught very many fish at all in my lifetime. But he said, because you say so, I will let down the net. They fished all night, and then Jesus told them, put it on the right side of the boat. Wow. Now, it's so hard to say, I blew it. I messed up. I failed. Isn't it hard to say that? It is for me. It is. Well, can we really admit it? Sometimes our theology gets in the way, but I think of Saul in the Old Testament and Samuel. Remember, just think of this. Saul didn't destroy all the Amalekites. Saul said, we brought back the cattle, and he named off several things, I believe, to worship the Lord. Baloney. Nonsense. It's not true. It wasn't true. He didn't bring that back to worship the Lord. He just didn't obey God. Samuel stated, God is going to take the kingdom away. That's what's going to happen. Now, think not only of Saul and Samuel. Think of David and Nathan. Wow. God gave the prophet Nathan courage. He had to have courage. His responsibility. I mean, in 2 Samuel 12, the Life Application Bible notes say something like this. You see, as a prophet, Nathan, he, in fact, was required to face sin, confront sin. Even in a king like David, he had to speak it to David, the truth. Well, it took great courage. It took a lot of skill. It took the wisdom of God to help Nathan confront and face David about his sin. But he did it. It was wonderful. It was fine that he did. Therefore, we need God's wisdom. You know, David became so insensitive to his own sin. It was like his conscience, it was like they just put concrete on it. Concrete, after it sets a while, is hard. You can't move it with your hands. You can't break it apart. You can't saw it with a small saw. You have to maybe get a power tool to begin to cut it. Well, he didn't realize he was the guilty one in Nathan's story. Would you turn back in the Old Testament? Would you do that? To 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, if you'll turn back to 2 Samuel chapter 12. We want to read 5 verses. 2 Samuel 12. What God said was going to happen did happen. It's like we read in the Bible, in the King James Version, "Thus saith the Lord." When God says it, it's true. And if it's going to happen, He said, He means it's going to happen. Now, 2 Samuel 12, okay? In the Old Testament. What is it? 2 Samuel, then 1st, 2 Samuel, 1st, 2 Kings, 1st, 2 Chronicles, okay? I don't know how you keep that straight. I think it's reverse order of the alphabet. You know, SKC. I don't know if that helps you. That probably doesn't hang true in the Spanish language, Leo, or in Korean. But anyway, 2 Samuel chapter 12. Verse 10, "Now, therefore the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me. You took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own." See, he committed adultery with her. What did David do? Then he sent Uriah into battle, and he got killed so he could have his wife. It's wrong, sin. Now, verse 11, this is what the Lord says. "Out of your own household I'm going to bring calamity upon you. Before your very eyes I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel." Now look at verse 13. 2 Samuel 12:13. "Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied, "The Lord has taken away your sin, you're not going to die." And then verse 14, "But because by doing this you made the enemies of the Lord show utter contempt, the son born to you will die." Now, David had Uriah murdered. He sent him to the front line in the battle, didn't he, where he would be killed. And then he stole Uriah's wife. He did. David did it. Well, because he did this, murder was a constant threat in David's family. His household rebelled against him. His wives were given to another in public view, and his first child by Bathsheba died. He was forgiven, but the consequences remained. Sometimes that happens. Now, I wonder, way back, what is this, 2010, the year? I hope I'm not dreaming. I hope this is it, 2010. If you go way back in the 1970s in the United States of America, I wonder about President Richard Nixon. I know where I was the day, our family, where we were located, in the day that he resigned the presidency of the United States. Now I wonder, then moving to the 1990s, I wonder about President William Clinton. Now don't get hung up that I'm independent or Republican or Democrat. I mentioned a Republican first and a Democrat second, so that evened the score. I'm trying. What if, at the start, they would have said to the nation on television, "I have sinned. I have sinned against God. Please forgive me." What would have happened to President Nixon? What would have happened better for President Clinton? You know, we can become so brittle. Do you know God can forgive sin? Oh, that's wonderful. He can forgive sin, and He does forgive sin when we confess sin. You want to write down this verse. Just make a note of it. You don't look it up. I'll quote it if I can. 1 John, not John, but 1 John chapter 1, verse 9. You may have committed it to memory. 1 John chapter 1, verse 9. If we confess our sin,